So it's coming up to that time of year as I record this episode when everybody's optimism goes through the roof and they start imagining all the things that they're going to achieve next year. I don't know where we get the inspiration from, but we set all sorts of goals coming up this time of year, New Year's resolutions and fantastic life goals that we just think absolutely next year it's all going to happen. But before we do that, I want to take you through a process that will help you that will ensure that next year you'll achieve many more of your goals than you have ever before. So let's get started. Hi, my name is Simon Phillips and I'm going to talk to you today about a process you can work through so that when you do set a goal, it's much more likely that it's going to happen. But let me ask you a quick question. Have you got any goals in mind for next year? Have you been thinking over the last few weeks, well, I'd like to work on my health, or maybe I'm going to do something about my aspirations, or invest a bit more time into my hobbies or my family, or reach out and connect with old friends. Who knows what the big goals are that you're going to be thinking about. But if you're anything like the 89.46% of the world's population that don't achieve their New Year's resolutions, then you might be thinking, is it actually worth the effort? Well, I'm going to take you through a process that will ensure that you really do feel like it's worth the effort, because you'll have invested just a little bit of thought to give you some structure and a framework for thinking these are the ones that I'm going to go for. Now, the reason why most New Year's resolutions don't happen, of course, is people just don't get started. I'm going to go on that diet just as soon as I've finished all this fantastic food I've bought in for Christmas. Or what's the other one I hear people say? I'm going to have a dry January just as soon as I finish the alcohol that I bought on Christmas Eve and is now stacked up in the cupboard. Who knows what the reasons are, but most people actually just don't get started with their goals and these resolutions. So we want to avoid doing something just sort of like impetuously. What we do want to do though is start to think about, so what would be a good goal to set? Because let's face it, we've all got aspirations, we've all got things that we'd like to achieve. So let's do that in a way that we feel a bit more confident that it's going to happen. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through a process which will ensure that we stop and we can give ourselves some room to reflect and learn from the year that's just gone, or maybe even the last couple of years, but that sort of stopping ourselves and putting ourselves into reflective mode is going to help. So we're going to do that. I'm going to do that with my now infamous 3H process, which is hindsights. It's the other way around. It's my highlights, it's the hindsights, and it's the habits. So let's have a look at each of those. So let's start, as I said, with highlights. Now, you may be sitting there thinking, were there any highlights from 2020? It was a pretty incredible year. It was a year that none of us had anticipated, and still we're right in the middle of it. If you're watching this 2 years' time, I hope this is all a long distant memory and you can hardly remember it at all. But 2020 has been a hard year and a challenging year in many respects. But I know from talking to my clients and my friends that there are some silver linings around those clouds. There are some things that have happened, some situations that have been forced upon us that have actually meant that we've stopped and we've reflected a little bit on maybe our values, maybe how we're spending time doing a load of things for other people, but maybe not for ourselves. Maybe we've neglected in the past some of those hobbies and interests that we have, and actually the enforced lockdowns have given us an opportunity to revisit some of those. So what I'd like you to do in a moment is stop the video and think about what are your highlights from 2020. Just jot down 2 or 3 and then come back and we'll carry on with this. Okay, welcome back. We're going to do the second H now, which is hindsight. Now, this isn't about all the bad things that have happened. It's literally just saying, in hindsight, what things did I start that I didn't actually progress with? Why was that? In hindsight, what would I have done differently? Which things did I maybe invest some time in, but maybe I didn't understand enough of the context? Or maybe there were things that I hesitated to do, and as a result, I missed some opportunities. So hindsight is, again, it's another learning process. It's a reviewing process. What's gone on for you in the last 12 months where in hindsight, you might have chosen to do them differently? So again, stop the video, take a couple of minutes, jot down the first things that come to mind. Don't delve into this too deeply, and then I'll see you back here in a few minutes. Now then, the third H is our habits. Our habits tell us a lot about us, but quite often we ignore what our habits are telling us because we don't like to feel that we are creatures of habit. Some habits are great though, and some are not so good. So in thinking about your habits, I want you to break them down into 2 categories. The first is those habits that you want to build on. You're going to keep them, you're going to build on them, and you're really going to make them work for you in the next year. And the others are, which ones do you want to break? Maybe some things have crept into your life. You know how it happens. All of a sudden, you found yourself for the 5th day in a row having a cake with a cup of tea instead of a piece of fruit and a glass of water. Who knows? There'll be some habits that you've created over the last few months that you might now want to break. So that's all we're doing. We're just assessing, putting them down on paper. Which habits am I going to keep and which habits do I want to break? So again, a couple of minutes and come back and we'll carry on. Okay, we've now got 3 H's. We've got a whole load of data, and more importantly, we've done a great amount of thinking about how we actually operate on a day-to-day basis. And we're going to use that thinking to inform us on what we're going to do when it comes to goal setting. So we're going to look at the highlights from the year. What were the things that really made me buzz, made me feel alive, made me feel like, yes, this is what life is all about. But what in hindsight might we have done differently? And which habits are we going to keep and build on to make this a great year? So what you will find as you look through all of this data is some things will start to emerge. There'll be a goal or an idea or a thought that you've had previously that will now be crystallized, and you'll also know what's the likelihood of you not just getting started but pursuing this and making it something that transforms an area of your life that this relates to. So we're there. We've just done it in a very quick format, a process that ensures that when we are setting our goals, we're fully equipped, both mentally and emotionally, to make them really good goals. So if you enjoyed that process, please share this with your friends. There's a share button somewhere on this screen, and subscribe to the channel. It would be great to see you back here next week. Have a good one.